Okay, well, this is our second video, second introductory video, and we're going to learn how to create the grid that we see here and the grid that we saw on the other side of this board. And we're going to do that with the help of some paper folder. Now, once you've got the grid, the rule for sketching each of these three graphs, once you have the right grid, is very simple, and you end up with a very good looking graph. Even if you're not all that careful, we don't have to have great precision. If you want great precision, you can use a graphing calculator. But we want something we can get our hands on and something we can do with our hands. Okay, here's a strip of paper. Now I'm going to do something very tricky. I'm going to bring the right edge of this paper over toward the left edge and put them together. Look at that, see? Now I'm going to smooth this out and make a fold there. And that fold, you can believe, is pretty much halfway, except for any little inaccuracies I might have had in making the fold. It's pretty much halfway between the left edge and the right edge. Okay? Now I want to make a fold halfway between the right edge and this center line. We'll call this a center line. Okay, so I bring the right edge over to the center line. Okay, get it right on the center line. And I crease the paper and I smooth it out. And now I've got a fold in the center and a fold halfway between the right edge and the center. Then I'm going to bring the left edge over to the center line. Now I do recommend you take a strip of paper and just do this. If you remember the way I did it, just do it by memory. If not, go back and watch what I do and do the same. But this is not a difficult process. So there I have 4 folds. Might be a little hard to see them. I haven't yet, this room's just been renovated, and this is the second video I've done in here, and our lighting is completely different. So, and you know, okay, anyhow, I think we can see 4 folds, and they should be ideally equally spaced. They won't be exactly equal because you're not going to fold the paper with 100% precision. Okay, so we've got these 4 folds. Now, what I'm going to do, what I've already done, is I can extend this paper across here and make 4 marks where those folds are. So that part is done. See where we go from here. Now, I'm going to take another one. And actually, this strip is going to go vertical. So this is going to correspond to the top edge of our rectangle and the bottom edge. And we're going to fold it in half. Okay. Now, we're going to call this set of folds folding toward the lower edge. Okay, so we've folded halfway from the upper to the lower edge, and now we want to fold halfway from the last fold to the lower edge. So I'm going to bring the last fold down to the lower edge, or the lower edge up to the last fold, and do this. And so far, it looks a whole lot like what we did with what I would call here, these vertical folds. Okay, you'll see why in a minute, but there we have it. I've got a bigger monitor. I wish I had it set up, but things are in shambles right now. Okay, so I think you can see those folds. Now, I'm going to make 2 more folds. Okay, and we're folding toward the bottom. So our last fold is here, and we're going to go halfway from the last fold to the bottom. And that means we'll just bring the bottom and the last fold together. And there we have a 3rd fold. Now we can see, if I can get the shadows right. I hope this is visible. Here's our first fold, second fold, third fold. Now the distance from the first fold to the second is the same as the distance from the second to the bottom. Of course, we want to think of this as top and bottom, okay? So the distance from the center fold down to here and the distance from here to here is the same because that's how we made this fold. So that these two distances, distance from this fold to this fold and from this fold to the bottom, are identical. Again, ideally, if we've done this with complete precision. And now we're going to make a fourth fold, again, bringing the bottom up to the, we want to go halfway from the last fold to the bottom. So we bring the bottom up to the last fold. And we make a fourth fold. Okay. And now we're going to spread this out. You're gonna make marks. Incidentally, you don't have to fold paper every time you do one of these. The reason we're doing the paper folds is because they're common mistakes people make. And if you've folded the paper, you're not going to make those mistakes. And those mistakes cost you because some of these problems, if they occur on a test, are all or nothing. You make one error and it's wrong, okay? Because this is such an important process. Normally I, give, especially on a complex problem, I'll give a partial credit. If you get 2/3 of the problem right, you're probably going to get 2/3 credit. But on some problems, we don't want to be exact. And on the problems involve these shapes, I'm going to want perfection, not perfection in your drawing. Nobody's going to draw these things perfectly, neither am I. But they got to have the right characteristics, okay? We'll see more about what that means. Anyhow, okay, now through each of these dots, I'm going to draw a vertical line. And then through each of these dots, I'm going to draw a horizontal line. Okay, there's my grid. Now I'm going to make the boundary lines solid so we can see our window. Actually, I should have extended these lines a little further. So there's our window. It's not a perfect drawing. You see, I got a little crooked here, and on a test, I wouldn't penalize that, although that's pretty bad. If it was me, I'd penalize myself. Okay, but there it is. There's our grid. This is a grid we would use. This is a type 1 grid. This is what we'll call a type 1 grid. It's not a standard mathematical term. It's just something we use in my classes so we don't have to say it's a grid with 3 vertical folds and 4 horizontal folds toward the bottom. Okay, actually, we would put a few more words about that. We'd say 3 vertical folds toward the center, as we do the center, and then we fold toward the center, fold toward the center, and then 4 horizontal folds toward the bottom. So we start from the top to the bottom, we get this fold, halfway from here to here is this fold, and so forth. And I think especially if you actually folded the paper, you're going to understand that. Okay, it's a type 1 grid. Now you want to draw a parabola. Now I'm going to have the rules written out for you. We're going to talk about them in class in more detail. But we start in the upper left-hand corner. Here's the rule. Start in the upper left-hand corner. You move one line to the right and two lines down and you make a mark. You move one line to the right. Oh. Okay. I started saying I was going to make a parabola because I wanted to show you early on that sometimes I kind of screw up. Okay. Now I don't want to make a parabola. I don't have the grid yet for a parabola. I've got to add one horizontal line to get a grid for parabola. I want to make the exponential curve. Okay. So the rule for the exponential curve is you start at the lowest construction line on the left edge. Now, a construction line corresponds to a fold, or the lowest fold on the left edge. Okay. Not on the lower boundary. You don't start there. You start here. Now, if you get all this from what I'm telling you now, well, then you're going to have it. But we'll talk about it more and make sure you understand as we move on. Okay. Then you move over one line, up one line, over one line, up one line, over one line, up one line, over one line, up one line. Lo and behold, you end up in the upper right-hand corner. And then you sketch a nice, smooth curve, which is going to be a pretty good curve to use if you want to predict how much your money that you invest in an account at 5% interest is going to be worth in 20 years. Okay, that's one of the things. Or if you have some kind of an organism that's an invasive species, let's say, that comes into an ecosystem that pretty much reproduce unrestricted, in some cases at least, and they grow exponentially. This is called an exponential curve. Okay, well, we don't want to go too far with that idea, but there it is. There's your type 1 grid, and there's your exponential curve. I'll even write that down. You're not responsible for knowing the terminology yet, but you will be soon. There it is. Okay. Well, I was going to show you all three curves in one video, but I keep talking a lot. And so I'm going to stop this video here, and then I'm going to show you kind of quickly how you do the parabola or the quadratic curve.